welcome to the Bree Pod. I'm here with me, Bree. So, last time we spoke, we were moving, and um, I should probably start there. But basically, we decided to go. Well, the last time I talked to you guys, I was telling you about how I was going to be going on a plane, and that um, the dog was going to be coming with us, and we were going through that process. Well, I ended up finding out along the lines that the dog actually could not go on the plane because he's not a service animal. He's not an emotional support animal at this time, and officially anyway. And he's not, he was too big for the plane, so they said. So we had to figure something else out. And luckily I think we had like a week or two left to figure it out. Um, And so we're like, all right, we're gonna drive. So I end up giving or getting my money back on the two different, because I had bought different types of um shelters for the dog for the airplane that were supposed to be like approved and everything. So I sent those back. I got a collapsible one since we're gonna be doing driving mostly. And he really didn't have to be in that during the drive, so we left it in the box. But Jeremy made this really cool little area for the dog. So he was laying on the dog bed. Um, and it gave him a lot of room, and I think it made his ride very well for him. He only got sick one time, which is impressive because anytime we would take him into the car, he would get sick. Uh, Even with the short rides, he would get sick at least once. So he actually did very well of only getting sick once on that ride. And so anyway, we drove from Oregon uh down the coast, then we went to California, and then we drove through and across after we went to LA. But during the beginning of our trip, it was really bad weather-wise. Apparently this is like a um not a normal weather storm that they were getting. Like there was a bunch of snow that had come in, and there was road blockages all the way down. The roads were very bad. Icy. Is definitely scary for most of that drive. I did not drive it, but Jeremy did, and he did really well. Just getting us through it. I'm glad because I would have been probably panicking a lot more. I know Jeremy was like tight-fisted on the wheel, as they say, but um, it wasn't. It wouldn't be it's not the same of how we both would react to that. But we did get here safely. I think we did it in 5 days. We could have done less, but between the dog and the baby, we didn't want them to feel, you know, be stuck in the car. Well, it was a van, but to be stuck in that for so long, especially since it's really not healthy for the baby's back and it's not healthy for the dog. So we made a lot of stops. We saw a lot of beautiful places. Once we got through the hiccups of the storm, uh, we were supposed to stay in this one area, but we ended up deciding to stay overnight in Los Angeles. Which I'm really happy we kind of added that day to our trip because it gave us a little bit more time out of the car, but also time to kind of see Hollywood, see the Hollywood Hills. We went down to Malibu, and it was beautiful. That it was supposed to be rainy that next day that we had woke up and it wasn't. It was beautiful. So it really was a nice trip toward the end, and we had a lot of fun. Um just enjoying it even though, it was rainy, it was stormy. At least that one day it was nice and sunny. So we had a good time with that. We finally get to Arizona. We're living in a hotel right now. I think I did say I was gonna take a photo of it or whatever, but I haven't done that yet. Um, but we're in a hotel now. It's not too bad. Um, it's big enough for the moment. Um, and the dog and the baby are acclimating to the new weather because when you go from Oregon to here, definitely changes. You're going from basically the forest to the desert. So it's change. Um, and then on top of that, as you guys know, I also still have the jaw surgery uh path that I'm taking. So because of this, I am still needing to go back to Oregon. And that's actually what I wanted to share about is my latest trip solo. Now, it's not that I've never done a trip by myself because I have. It's just been so long since I have. I mean, after having the baby, um, yeah, and being married, I think the last time I took a solo trip by myself, obviously solo, um, was probably when I would go work in Montauk and I would take like the plane, then the train. Well, I joke because I took all the different automobile ways to get there. Or I shouldn't say automobile because that's not just all of the like train, boat, plane, car, all of them. Um anyway, so and then there was a time that I went to Atlanta by myself. But at the other end, there was always somebody that I would be seeing. In this case, this is probably the first official solo trip of going somewhere without seeing anybody or knowing anybody um, that I can think of. And on top of that, being a mom, a breastfeeding mom. So it's kind of funny. And when I say it's kind of funny, I really mean like in a haha, oops, kind of way. But it's kind of funny because when I was planning my trip to go back to Oregon, really it's basically like a 40-minute um appointment, but it's very vital to everything that's happening to like what we need done to get to where I need to go. So, and I know you could say, well, couldn't you go somewhere else and get it done since you're in another state? But the thing is, the orthodontist that I have and the surgeon that I have are on my case. And I don't mean like on like the mean way of it. I mean like literally it's my case is theirs. Um, where they are not comfortable with having someone else come in and be a part of it, like the third wheel kind of deal. And also there's a special way that they do their money, um, which is, you pay the one orthodontist to do what, what they need to do. And so I kind of get how that wouldn't be fair to bring that third party in as well in that sense too. And also, like I said, I mean, in any in every different medical department, or even if they're in the same field, there's going to be a different way that they go about it. And we've learned that with actually the helmet with my son. So for me, I understand where they're coming from, and so I'm following suit. And I'm just traveling. I only have to go every other month. I travel and I have the appointment and then I go back. So basically what happened was on Sunday I left. I went to Oregon. I was not gonna bring my pump, because I didn't, this is my first time having baby, my first time breastfeeding. So I wasn't, and my first time really being away from my son. So I wasn't really thinking about the expression of how, breast milk works. Like I know it, but it just wasn't at the top of my head. And so I was like, oh yeah, I'll just go. Uh, only need a set of clothes, a check it or a bag that I don't need to check in, and just, be on my merry way. And so then I was talking to my aunt and my mom, and I was all like, oh yeah, I don't really, need to bring anything else. And then they're both like, yeah, but you need to bring your breast pump. And I was like, why would I need to bring that? I won't have the baby with me. And again, this is me just not thinking clearly at that time. And they're like, yeah, but you know, the baby is usually, helping you get the milk out. What happens when you don't have the baby? And then I'm like, oh yeah, duh. So yeah, I had a little moment there when it came to traveling. But in my defense, it is my first time as a breastfeeding mom, and they weren't mean about it. I'm very happy that they told me because I would have been in a lot of pain because once I got off, and sorry for anybody that feels TMI here, but this is what we do. Um, Once I got off the plane, I think it was like 8 o'clock at night that I got there, my boobs were in pain because it was like about a 2.5 to 3 hour plane ride. And I hadn't pumped, I think a few hours prior to that yet. So yeah, they were ready. And so when I finally got to the hotel, I pulled out my pump and I was just super thankful, being like, you know what? Thank goodness they told me this because I wouldn't have had this pump and I would have been in a lot of pain. And you can always do like hand expression, but um sometimes I think that the pump that I have is I personally like it because even when you're in that position of feeling so much pain, you can it like still allows it to be a nice, decent way of bringing it out versus with my hand, I think it would have hurt just trying to, you know, express it. So, I'm very thankful for the pump, like super thankful. And then I did not realize how much I was pumping until, like, I should say, I didn't realize how much the baby was eating until I was not with him and started pumping. And when I saw the amount of food that I was producing for him, I was like, dang, I should be saving this. Like, this is, as they call it, liquid gold. But I didn't think of that. So I didn't have anything with me to save it. So I had to do a lot of pump and dump, which was very sad to watch. And then when I was at the airport, I think it was like the fifth bottle I was about to pump and dump. I told myself, I'm going to find a way to bring this back. Like, I need to figure out how to bring this back. And so I went and I bought this like thermos that was for a kid. Um, I put the milk in there. I went to this whiskey place and I said, I need your help. I have a weird question. So I got this bag of ice. And then I had this perfect plan, and the milk was in the ice. And then I read online that you can ask the airline to help you keep something cold, especially if it's breast milk. So I was like, well, I won't bring the bag of ice with me because it started to leak. So right before the plane came, I threw the ice bag out and I pulled out my little thermos and I brought it with me and I asked them, can they keep it cool for me? But the lady that I spoke to wasn't really helpful. She said I could ask later for it. So that is where my milk ended up getting spoiled and I didn't get to use it. Um, I probably could have pressed the issue, but I really don't like doing that. And I could tell that she didn't understand the circumstances. You can tell when people understand where you're coming from or when they don't. And that doesn't, and I'm not saying it based off of people that have done it or haven't done it, because there are people that haven't done it that can still understand your circumstance. This person, I don't think she understood at all. Um, so, or the understanding the struggle, like, and the other thing, I know that this is a bit judgmental, but um, I really do feel that when I was at the airport in Oregon, I was kind of disappointed in the room, the nursing room that they have, or the lactation room, because I was thinking about all the places that have these like luxurious lounges, and each airport has that. And I'm not saying we have to have like such a luxurious place, but it is kind of sad that it's gonna look like a bathroom. I mean, there was a nice chair, and I understand having the sink is very important, but we do. we do a lot for our children, and we do a lot to keep them, protected and loved and supported and fed and in however manner, that you do it. And if we are subjected to a room that looks like a very lonely bathroom, that's what it felt like. There's just a chair and there's wooden benches. So if you had other people with you, it just didn't feel comforting. And I know that sounds really maybe more of a bougie kind of complaint, but I just feel it should be a bit more comforting because you're vulnerable in this position. You're vulnerable in that sense of being kind of lonely and, you know, I mean, I'm not saying there needs to be other people in there unless, they had like little pods or something like not pods, but like almost like little mini areas that were cute. I don't know. Maybe I sound too much, but I just found it weird that sometimes a dressing room that is, meant for women, looks more inviting than this room. So I was a little let down on that. And I know that there are places that it's getting better and better, but I do hope as time goes on that they're able to bring us a bit more. Um, and, you know, within reason, obviously. But that was just a side note. I know that that sounds like a very first world problem, but I don't know. I just think that we really we have still a long way to come, which is true. We have had that. And we have come a long way. And the fact that it exists, that's amazing. So there is that, and I am grateful for that. But I just look forward to the future of more of that uh being in taken into consideration. Um, because you had two options. You have this lactation room or the bathroom. And in some ways, the bathroom just felt just as much as the lactation room. The only difference is a chair and maybe a little bit cleaner. So that's kind of the thoughts that I had on that. But anyway, we don't need to go down that route. But what I wanted to share are some of the mistakes. So one of the mistakes that I made was that I did not bring a refrigeration type of system so that I could keep all the milk that I was producing. Um, and it didn't have to be the whole time, but for the time being in the airport the day that I was going to leave. So now I know for future that I am going to bring one of those insulated bags, and you are allowed to have an ice pack, as long as it's solid, frozen solid. It cannot be liquid. So I learned while I was in the airport, I learned a bunch of the things that people do before they like board the airplane because you can't go in with the breast milk, but while you're within the airport, you can create the breast milk. So that's kind of how I was thinking about it. Um, and then on top of that, one of the mistakes I made is that I read online too that if I would have had those little baggies instead of like you can have the bottle that goes to your um my breast pump, but if I would have had the baggies, I could have also worked with them and put them together and then had my ice pack kind of make those frozen. So I would have had more more bags of milk. So just different little things that I learned while I was in the airport. Um, and then the next thing that I learned or the mistake that I made is I did not take into account that I know this sounds really ridiculous, but I checked the weather and I thought there's no way that the flight that I'm taking is going to have any reason to have a layover or delay, I should say. Well, there was a delay. Um, and so next time I would have brought a laptop so I could do work, because as you know, I work from home. Obviously, it's not something that is necessarily a necessity, but it's something that I think I would have much rather have done instead of I basically walked around the airport just like a little lost puppy. Not really lost, just kind of, oh, I have nothing to do. So that's another mistake that I made. Now the delay, it's kind of funny how that went down. I still have no idea why we were delayed. I really don't know. But what I do know is that when I was at the airport, um, my well, prior to going, I my phone told me, "Oh, your flight has been delayed to 6 o'clock at night." And I thought, "Oof, I really don't want to get home for 9 p.m. because I was really missing my son like so much." And we did a lot of video chats. We did a lot of communication that Jeremy could do for me. But I like wanted to be home on time, or in my eyes of what was on time. And unfortunately, when I saw this on my app, it said you can change your flights. So I thought, okay, I'll just check and see if there's anything sooner than later. Uh, so I changed it, I thought, to that day for 2 o'clock. So I just assumed that they had created another flight for that same time, but I didn't realize that that was actually the flight for the next day. So I was thinking, oh, I'm still leaving at 2. So I'm back to the airport at 11 because, trying to do the whole like 2 hours prior. Now, one of the mistakes I would add in this is that I next time will be TSA approved. I actually am right now. It's just I have to change the last name. So that's kind of a process. Once that's done, I'll be fully TSA approved and I won't need to worry about the line, even though there really wasn't a line when I went, but still, like for future reference of for future flights and everything. So that's another side note. So that's a mistake that I made, but I'm gonna make sure that's taken care of. So I'm gonna get my name in check. And then um back to my story here. So I get there and I try to check in, but it won't let me check in. And it said you need to check in 24 hours prior to your flight. And I was thinking, well, that's weird because 2 hours from now, I'm supposed to be on this flight. So I go up to the counter and I talk to the guy there, and he's like, oh, yeah, this is for tomorrow. So then he had a couple options. He said I could either wait for the original flight that I had and go on that one, or I could go on this other flight that actually has a a stop. So I'd have to go to Seattle, then Arizona. And I thought that was a lot of backtracking. Plus, the timing was actually around 5 minutes difference. So I was like, nah, I don't really want to go to Seattle to go back to Arizona, which would have been a longer flight versus just wait and get on the 2.5 to 3 hour flight. So I waited, but I was still kind of sad because, I'm going to be getting later to my son and I was missing him. So I did cry because, you're missing it, or I'm missing it. So then I called Jeremy and I let him know what was going on, and he's always very calm. I love that about him. He always makes sure to keep me in a not just me, but in any circumstance with anybody, he always is the person that will keep you calm, even when it feels chaotic. So he was just like, "It's okay, Bree. We've got this taken care of. Liam is okay. Benji's okay. Just do what you can to enjoy, you know, the circumstance. Find a way to uh, make it kind of like lift it up that circumstance." So, um, with that, I still cried because I'm missing my son like crazy, and I know it's only been a night, only a night away, but it felt long. At the same time, so after I cried, I was like, I really need to look at the good parts, like Jeremy's saying. So I thought, okay, well, what are things that I can do right now that could help me embrace this time that I'm gonna have to embrace? So I went to this place that had really good food. So I hung out with myself, eating food. I was calling people. I was on Facebook, checking out notifications, just like enjoying myself. And then I was thinking about work and like the different things and goals that I have and like what I want to do. And so in being on the other side now, I do feel that I needed that time and I needed that moment because as many of you know, as a mom, um, you do feel like your world revolves around your children, or fur babies too, because my Benji, he's my baby. Um, and you kind of sometimes forget yourself. Uh, but I will say that I am in a beautiful relationship where Jeremy makes sure to have me take time for me. So there is that. Uh, but it was nice to have the moment to focus on myself and what I want and what I want to do and what my next steps were. And so that part I really did enjoy. And then I also had a lot of the time trying to figure out the whole breast milk deal. Um, that actually was my brain just going, okay, I was searching through different blogs that people had. I was searching through all the things to find because I kept finding what you should get before you get to the airport to save milk. But it's like, what do you do when you get in the airport? And it's not like they have a store or anything where you can buy these different things that you forget about um on the being on the other side. So now I know for the future that when I go in there, I'm going to have an insulated bag. I'm going to bring my little plastic bags where I can fill the milk in them. I'm going to have the freezer pack that is frozen. It has to be frozen before I get there, new liquid, and have that in the insulated bag. I'm going to tell the person at um, the checkpoint that I have the breast milk supplies. Um, and then when I get to the other side, I can pump, put it in those bags, and then they'll be cold and I don't have to like run around for ice. So that's something I learned. The second thing I learned is that if you can't be with your child, like if you're feeling that feeling of like, oh, I won't be able to see them because of this delay, instead of sitting in that sorrow and sadness, as long as they're in, I'm assuming that, when you're leaving them in good hands. As long as they're in safe, good hands, the best thing at that moment is, of course, you can always video chat, but also to just embrace that moment for yourself and because it is a form of self-care. Um, and it gave me it sparked so many ideas and things that I wanted to do. And I feel very, very good about um what I'm going for and striving for. And this is stuff that has to do with me as Brianna, not me as Liam's mom. So that's been um that was really nice for me. And I need to get used to this because every other month I have to do this until it's done. And then there's going to be that time where I'm gone for like I think a week to 2 weeks for recovery from the jaw surgery when it does happen. At this time, I don't know when it's going to happen. But we did, but at the last appointment that I had, which was obviously just this last past weekend or Monday, um, they took some molds of like my, my teeth where they're aligning. And that's gonna kind of give us an idea of where we're at and what's next and what it's looking at for surgery time. So overall, a lot of stuff is in movement. Um, and so yeah, so the next one will probably be sometime in May. Um, and before that, we're actually going to be taking our first full family trip. Benji's going to be boarded, but we are going to head to New York and see family. And Liam is going to meet friends and family for the very first time. So that's wicked exciting. Um, Also nerve-wracking because those travel days from here to New York is always such a long, long day. And then the time the time change is also intense too. So we'll see how it goes. But overall, everything is on point. Everything is going down how it needs to go as far as the jaw surgery. Um, our son, his helmet process is going well. We did hit a little hiccup or hit a little bump in the road where he is gonna have to actually get a different helmet. But um, now that we have this doctor, we feel very confident in what she would like. So we're gonna follow through with that. Luckily, we do not have to pay for more than one helmet, which is very good because that'd be horrible if we did. Um, but yeah, overall, that's what's going on with life. It's been a while since I have been able to sit down and just share what's going on. Many of you know that we do a lot of traveling, and I've been told by, um, and I know that you probably hear this all the time when you're listening to something that's like, many listeners told me. And it's like, were they really? But anyway, this is truth. I have been told by a couple of listeners that they would like to hear or read a bit more about, what it's like traveling with a family. Um, or in this case, this one was traveling solo. So I think I am going to share a little bit more of that part of our lives because traveling is a part of what we do for Jeremy's work, and it's not usually. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. It does exist, but it's not always the path traveled, especially when you have a dog and child. Um, but it's the path that we're taking, and so there's a lot of pros and cons. I was gonna start with cons, but there are both pros and cons to it. Um, but it's also really it can be very enjoyable too. So I don't want to put a negative spin on it either. Um, but sometimes the feeling of being grounded is not always there. So sometimes we do have to find that balance of how to feel grounded in this types of situations. Um, but that's basically what I have for now. I could go on and on and on since it's been a while, but I'll save that for another time. You might hear from me in a couple of weeks, or you may hear from me after our vacation to see family. But in that time, I hope that you know, and I always will say this, that you are loved, you are worthy, you are cherished, and I am proud of you. Until next time on the Brew Pod.